Just waiting for it to
I.C.E.
pull up on YouTube, but it looks like we are now live for the 2023 June Training Talk show. We were just having arguments on all kind of stuff, guys, safes and holsters and everything else. So if the pre-show was this exciting, it's going to be a good show tonight. But welcome everybody tuning in. Don't forget to let us know where you're tuning in from, so we got to pay attention to that. But tonight's show, we are joined by the Jamie Onion. Jamie's been on the show with us multiple times in the past. You know that he brings a lot of knowledge to the show. He has a full career of law enforcement and other stuff behind him. Also, obviously, is an active instructor and other stuff. So welcome to the show, Jamie.
Welcome. I think this is my first one since I retired, Barret.
Congratulations on the retirement.
Thank
like
you.
I said, the full law enforcement career behind him, right? Officially retired. And Deryck Poole, man. Deryck hiding over there in the corner coming out of Florida.
Yeah. I don't know what that R word is, retire. I don't know if I have one of those things in my future.
Yeah, that's, I was pretty confident. I'm like, by the time I'm 50, I'm going to be retired. Well, I hit 45 a couple of weeks ago, so I'm pretty sure that we got to get some different things in order if I'm going to be sticking my toes in the sand in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, there's no toes in the sand. It's just on to the next life. That's all.
Yeah, definitely so. Yeah, you sound like you're busier now than you used to be.
That's a fact.
But the chances of like getting actually hurt at work are much lower, right?
I would hope.
It's a benefit, right? I mean,
Yeah,
paper cuts suck, but you know.
Let's
life
see.
is dangerous. Like, look, I'm sitting here like a little 3-year-old with a Band-Aid on my finger. Yeah.
With a Band-Aid on your finger?
Yeah.
You pinched it in the doorway today?
No,
needed a Band-Aid to make it feel better?
Yep, exactly right.
I'm trying to figure out if that's a broom in the background.
Over there?
Or a very long
delay,
50 cal?
Yeah.
It kind of looks like a big, long 50 cal leaning up against the wall. Maybe that's what it is.
I wish I had 50 cal money. No, that is the Echo 5 banner setup. And the banner, I left it setting up too long in this room, and this room gets hit by sun in the middle of the day. And the fold over is like one of those hot iron loops. And I came in one day and it was just all on the ground because that hot iron loop had gotten warm enough to let go. So that's why everybody gets to look at my blurry background.
I wondered why you didn't have the official Echo 5 background up.
Yeah, I tried to do that little, what do you call it, the virtual background. And it looked like I was sitting in an Echo 5 wall, which is, here. Since we're being, see? It's like I'm sitting in the Echo 5 wall, not in front of. So we scrapped that idea.
Sorry, best I can do is my wife's book problem in the background.
So you shouldn't have said your wife, because then it made everybody like,
right.
He is smart.
Like, Jamie's smart, man. Look at all the books he reads.
Yeah. Nobody can like zoom in and see exactly what the titles are. So,
From the color of it, I'm pretty sure it's like knitting or something, basket weaving.
Pretty close.
Yeah.
It could be like
puppy dogs,
stoicism, all sorts of like medical stuff on neurology.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, tonight's exciting show is brought to you by Primary Arms Online. If you haven't been to the store, check it out. We've talked about it in the past, but generally speaking, they are ones to drop coupon codes on the public page or, offer discounts to first-time shoppers. And so check it out, Primary Arms Online. Look, Deryck Poole's got a hat back there, the official hat of Primary Arms.
Ding.
There you go. I like that hat. I don't wear hats, but I love that hat just because I like the color. I like that flat, dark earth thing.
Yeah, you'll need it here in July.
I need a boonie cover.
That'd be a good hat to wear. What's that?
I need a boonie cover in July.
Well, that too, but you can wear the Primary Arms.
And a portable air conditioning unit.
Yeah, you definitely will need that. Are you excited, Deryck? You ready to go?
Oh yeah, I'm ready. You know me, I'm always ready to go. No,
So
I'm sitting here thinking, why did I say yes? And I'll be sitting here thinking, why did I say yes until I get there?
Because it's gonna be fun. I got my rifle ready. Some of y'all saw us talking about painting it earlier on the Instagrams.
And if you hadn't painted it, everybody could see that is a primary arms optic on.
Oh no! Look closely.
Oh, you left
right?
that out. Look at you, fancy.
So let's see on the other side. There we go. Primary arms.
Nice.
And so yes, they just released their 4th generation of the SLX 1-6x24. And that's it. Just took it out of the box, I don't know, a couple of hours ago, and now it's already been painted. But I bet you it's going to work just the same. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm actually headed to the range tomorrow morning to get that sighted back in out to 500 again.
Oh, cool. Like when you mount yours, where do you mount yours on the flat top? Do you like? I like to use the last rail.
I typically use the last rail, and this is honestly just sitting on here. You can kind of see, it's all the way towards that front.
Yep.
But on a red dot, I always run it to that last rail. Obviously, on anything with magnification like the LPVO, I've got to balance the eye relief on it. Yep. And so that's about where I found the eye relief seemed to be pretty neutral for me. And so, that's where it's sitting right now, but it's literally just hand tight. So we'll see tomorrow morning.
Cool.
Absolutely. Well, we are right in the middle of the Personal Defense Network training tour. And I know that there's been classes taking place, all over the state, all over the United States, and even south of the United States down in Mexico. That's right. We've had Rob Pincus and Edgar, I think at different times, both down in Mexico teaching this year, as well as many other instructors all over the United States offering some pretty neat classes. I think I just recently saw Green Line Tactical. Don Edwards was even posted about a CQB class. No experience required for those, no CQB experience required anyway, for those who are in his area. But yeah, all kinds of different classes. I know Deryck's been running some defensive handgun courses over on the East Coast.
We're the West Coast of the East Coast.
The West Coast of the, that's right. Yeah. The West Coast of the East Coast.
Right.
The one Florida, you got that other Florida that runs all along the East Coast where the sun sets in the wrong direction. Right. But yeah, you're on the cool side. Right. But yeah, check out PDNTrainingTour.com for all of those different types of dates and opportunities. I know that I've got a force-on-force class coming up with different scenarios and stuff designed for home defense and concealed carry here later in August. I just finished up in Mississippi here, offering defensive handgun classes this weekend as well. Onion, do you have classes on calendar right now?
I do not, sir. Most of the stuff that I'm doing now is private within the LE community, but I probably, before the summer's out and fall out here in Ohio, will have a couple posted.
Awesome. I need to make it back to Ohio's.
Yeah, and I had big demand up here for the red dot stuff, especially for LE right now. We were kind of late adopters up in this region for the most part, and now it's kind of just flooding up here, so that's what I'm spending most of my time on.
Awesome. Good deal. Well, tonight's show, we're going to be talking all about a layered approach to personal defense and, what that looks like. And, as we kind of go into the show, we've got, three different perspectives of, what that might mean. And what does that mean to you when we talk about a layered approach? You can certainly drop that in the comments and whatnot on how, when you first hear those words, and, maybe you already take a layered approach to self-defense. So what do your layers look like? But yeah, it should be a good show tonight. Guys, you want to jump into the show now, or?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, you heard it, right? A layered approach to self-defense. And this is, Personal Defense Network, right? And a Personal Defense Network, if you jump on the website, there's a tremendous amount of information just in the firearm side of things, whether that's for home defense, concealed carry, or, active shooter response and just different types of contexts that, that people may be using firearms, to protect themselves or other people that they care about. And, the three of us have spent a lot of our adult lives, teaching firearms and helping people understand violence and teaching how to protect themselves with guns under worst case circumstances. And, I think that all three of us have mentioned these words or take the approach in our classes that, you protect yourself with the gun if you need to, right? If it's absolutely necessary and you need to, and then you do what you have to do to, come out on the better side, of that situation. But when we think about the gun response, if a lot of times there's a lot of things that went bad where somebody ends up being forced to use that gun. And so that's kind of, at the core, at the center of it, is that our last layer of defense may be that firearm, even though in some situations that's the first thing that has to get used because of the circumstance dictated, but at other times, people may use guns when they could have employed other layers of protection, or wouldn't have had to use the firearm at all, had they had other layers of protection in place. And so, as we begin to talk about that, what is that, I guess, Jamie, we'll go to you first, right? You've got with a career in law enforcement, different perspective than, what Deryck or, I may have. And so what does that mean to you?
Well, Barrett, we've talked about this extensively, and we hear a lot about, oh, you can just walk away, you can drive away, you can do some of those things. But when we're talking specifically about training, I think my perspective is a little bit different than most, because I put the firearm down on the list a little bit. It's not that it's not important. It's not that it isn't going to be that last line of defense. But I really think that we have to look at context and plausibility when we look at expelling the resources that we have to put forth for the training, and through resources, not just time, but money. And the firearm fits into that plan, especially on the basics level and fundamental level. But talked before, I really think that where we're missing the boat a lot is in the context of what we do on a daily basis, primarily driving and medical.
Yeah, and so expand on that a little bit.
So, again, we have to have, if you're going to choose to carry a firearm, whether you've had any other training prior to that, or it is our last line of defense, you have no choice but to front load your training resources on that firearm. Because if you're going to be carrying it, you should have the training. So prior to all the things that I'm going to talk about, if you choose to immediately carry that firearm for self-defense, that's where you have to put your first training dollars, in my opinion. So you can educate yourself on the best use of that, when to use it, and all the things that come along with that. That aside, we have to look at what we do. We talked about that layered plan. What are the most dangerous things that we do? What are the most dangerous things that we could encounter throughout our daily life? And I think that context is going to change a little bit depending on what your life looks like on a daily basis. But no matter what your life looks like on a daily basis, drive almost every day, unless you're, like a New Yorker or something like that. And throughout my career, and, I've been on here before, everybody knows what my background is. I've seen more incidents and critical injury involving driving and basic medical use than I ever have had to employ a firearm or seen a situation where the firearm would be employed. That being said, though, again, I can't stress it enough. If you're going to carry that firearm for personal defense, you have to front load those training resources and get educated on it.
Yep.
Yeah, no, definitely so. And that's like you said, I think that if we took, 10 different people watching the show tonight and started to break down, what their day looks like, what their job looks like, what their activities look like, what their weekends look like, right? Where do they spend their time doing? What are their hobbies? You may have some people out there that, are doing things like, free diving or spearfishing, even on scuba, down to a couple 100 feet and doing quick drops down to the bottom, shooting fish and going back up to the surface, right? And so in those types of situations, they may be facing, different types of threats, whether that, be issues with the diving itself with the scuba, or with, sharks or something, right? I think that Heck, if you, I don't know if you've seen the horrible video out of a There was a Russian diver here just recently, but getting attacked, on video, by a shark, right? But if you've got somebody that spends a lot of time, where they are diving along aggressive sharks, then obviously part of their personal defense plan should be, mitigating that, right? Or the guy that is the professional driver, the one that's driving for Uber or for Lyft or any sort of ride share or taxi type of company that's constantly putting strangers in their vehicle at all times of the night, right? There's obviously different, risk associated with that. I was just out in Atlanta area teaching safety and security, for a team at a house of worship facility, right? And it was pretty eye-opening to them when I even started putting up slides about all of the registered sex offenders that existed, within a 2-mile radius of their facility, right? And that's, the things like that type of threat, can often be overlooked as well. Even though they brought me in, we're talking a lot about firearms and active shooter response. Well, from day to day, they're far more likely to, to be dealing with a registered sex offender coming in that they may need to be, aware of and aware of the activities coming to the church and making sure the proper accountability is in place. Right. And so I think that, yeah, it's, what does somebody's day look like? What does their activities look like, their hobbies, and, how they spend their time? And are they, putting the resources into the best places? And, I carry a firearm, and I have, just about every single day for the past 17, 18 years or something like that, but at the same time, it's the least likely part of my personal defense plan that I'm going to have to use from day to day. And I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. And, one of the things too, Barret, that we have to look at too, with those resources, we've talked about it on here before, is, for us enthusiasts and trainers and things like that, we're still a small part inside our firearms community. There's a lot of folks out there that this is, the carrying of the firearm is their fire extinguisher, right? Their worst case scenario. They still need that level of training. God forbid they need that. And those are the folks that I really like to talk to about that expenditure of resources, right? Are you going to take a weekend away from your family to go do that training once a year? And if you do, you need to make sure that you're looking into the proper resources. It really makes me laugh. And Deryck and I talk about this all the time. Someone buys a microwave, they'll spend 6 weeks researching their microwave, looking at reviews on Amazon and all that kind of stuff. But they go to the first, trainer that they can find on YouTube or on, locally or something like that, instead of vetting out the types of trainers like we have here on the tour, or associated with, some professional organizations to get that proper training. So they're getting that foundation.
So funny you mentioned that. Like, I just got a text message a couple of days ago. Somebody asked me about a training company that's sort of in this area. And I said, well, what does their about page look like? Like, what is the instructor? What's their background? And they said, there's really nothing on the about page about the actual owner. This is your Second Amendment right. You should be doing it. It's, you better get it done now before the people in Washington take away your right. Like, I'm like, yeah, you might want to keep looking.
Yeah. The one thing I caution too, because we have a lot of people who rely on their background to sell classes, right? So I was a suburban cop for most of my career. Early on, I was in the inner city, but most of my career I was a suburban cop. I got to do some cool stuff, some task force work, things like that. But background is only a piece of the trainer puzzle, right? So it goes back to that context and plausibility. They might understand in a lot of the cases the operational use of the firearm, but the context that you're looking for in your training environment, and by you I mean our listeners, might be completely different and foreign to the trainer that you're looking for. And so it's important that you don't just rest on the credentials that are posted, that you really vet out folks that have had that training, that share the same context and plausible things that you do before you make that choice. Because it could be a very, very good trainer in their context, but it might not fit what you need for your limited resources in the short amount of time that you're going to be participating in that training.
And a lot of people, even their background, they look at their background and they might, like Barret didn't serve and he's never been a police officer, but one of the best teachers of the firearm and personal defense that I know of. Jamie's a former law enforcement guy, great teacher. I'm a Marine. I don't know what I am, but
pretty solid teacher.
I got a few descriptive words I could use.
Right, I know. But I tell, like, when people ask me, I tell them all the time. I go, you don't have to find the former, Delta SEAL Foxtrot guy.
Nope.
Right. It could be somebody that's never ever held a position where they carried a gun daily, but they're a student of personal defense. They're a student of the gun, and they've been studying it a long time, and they're able to think about it critically and coach you and correct you and give you the best information available. A lot of times, those are the people, because like Jamie, I know guys that like carry guns for a living. That's just a tool in your toolbox that you take to work, and like you have zero interest in playing with that tool once you get off of work.
Yep. And Barrett's a great example. I've been to, my resume's out there, my background's out there. You can look at that, and most people know me on the show already. But I've been to multiple reality-based training seminars, different brand name packages and things like that. And yet you speak to Barrett's background, probably one of the best reality-based training instructors in the entire community. Does it right from start to finish, and that's not easy to do. So someone who's looking for all those acronyms and stuff in the background might miss out on some of the best training in the industry. So that's why it's super important to vet those instructors and not just go by the YouTube following.
Yeah, absolutely. Please don't go off the YouTube following. Mine.
Yeah, I keep with your little bubbles that keep popping up on these new. I keep waiting for the like pow, bam, boom.
I'm trying to use all the features that we have.
And
so
that.
Go ahead.
One of the things that I think PDN and Rob have done over the years is we've really expanded. If you look back at the early PDN tours where we were all part of them, most of the training was focused on our inner group of instructors within the firearms community doing firearms related classes. And both PDN and Rob, I think, have done a great job expanding this over the years, making it a one-stop shop, whether your resources are to be spent online or attending an actual class, which is super important, and expanding that knowledge base. And our topic of the show tonight's layered. The PDN tour really does offer you a bunch of classes to help build those layers now as it's grown, that are outside just the typical firearms classes that you might see with a lot of other organizations.
Yeah, I just decided to pull up some of the classes that you'll see, and of course there's firearm stuff that exists on the tour, everything from different introduction defensive handgun or defensive carbine classes, unorthodox shooting positions, two-person armed defense. Like, right, you're going to see all of that, but then you also see things like active killer casualty care. Edge of reality with Ryan Hoover, great instructor out on the East Coast or Easter Coast. Active killer defense, right? So just all kinds of different options. Here's a Krav Maga, seminar. Breaking Brutal, another session with Ryan Hoover. Red Dot, pistol instructor, right? Free CCW class. So it's like, you've got all kinds of stuff that exist across here. And I mean, I'm going to scroll down and see more and more different options. But yeah, it's really, it's a layered approach, right? Just exactly what we're talking about tonight. It's all kinds of stuff that some of it is going to go into hardware, but plenty of it's going to go into software and have a better understanding of how to not end up in the situation in the first place.
Sure.
or have the skills that you need, even if it's not a life or death threat situation. It's something else, a car accident, motorcycle accident, right, Jamie?
All right, Deryck.
Hey, Jamie, and for those that don't know, Jamie was actually with me when I had my little motorcycle accident. He barely escaped. I think he escaped with a broken toe.
Yep.
Yeah. He leaned so hard, he smashed his toe and got away. I leaned so hard and didn't get away.
Could have been
But
worse.
Jamie was my first responder. He was the first one up, and I was carrying a gun when I went down. Gun did me a whole lot of good. It was the medical kit that I needed, and Jamie was there to render aid.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you talk to your, local first responders. I promise you, there's a way more medical calls than there are deadly force incidents.
Yeah, plenty of times I've used tourniquets far more than bullets. So the one of the things that we talk about with that is, and I get a lot of pushback amongst my instructor friends with this is, I say all the time, I'd leave home without my gun before I'd leave home without my medical kit. I prefer not to leave home with either or without either, but just based on my context and my training, my experience, it's the piece that of the puzzle that I know that I'll likely use the most. But I don't want to take the focus away from our folks on here that are interested in the firearms training, because I think it's important. They're making that choice to carry that gun. We have to front load those training resources into the firearms, at least to a basic and competent level. Even if it means forgoing some of those other things that we talked about, because you're making that conscious decision to carry now. You don't have time to hope that nothing happens while you're waiting to get additional training down the road. And that's one of the nice things about the tour is it hits pretty much every part of the U.S. as they go through, and if it doesn't hit your part, it's within driving distance. So we have a lot of options on the tour this year that I think are very valid options that fit that layered approach. And then if there's something that interests you that's outside the tour dates, there's plenty of competent instructors that you can do outside of the tour dates as well.
Yeah, no, definitely so. Lots of opportunities on the tour. So, okay, so we talked about, driving, we talked about medical, right? When let's say that, you're traveling to unknown city, right? You're outside of your normal operating area. You're traveling to an unknown city. You're just there vacationing, you're working, doesn't really matter, insert whatever. What are some of the things that you do to help prevent yourself from ending up in a situation where you're forced to protect yourself with a gun?
You're asking?
Assuming you're in
I'll ask Deryck. So Deryck,
Yeah.
you go first since Onion went first last time.
The first thing I do is I make sure that my wardrobe is set in a way that I'm not going to stand out. I mean, I already stand out, right? I'm 6'4". I stand out in the crowd just because of my size.
That's because you're mean looking.
I don't. That's the other thing, right? I don't walk around looking like the easy target just by walking, right? 6'4", they look all right. 6'4", about 250-ish pounds. I'm sure I can find an easier wallet or whatever today, but I try not to stick out, right? That's not the time where I wear my funny shirts, that say warheads on foreheads, with a big smiley face on it. I like button down, nondescript. I don't try to look tactical. I mean, I don't look tactical anyway. I don't think I own a pair of pants that look tactical, but I try to just look like the average person walking around. I try to move in bigger crowds, not like mobs, but where there's other people around. Try not to isolate myself. Try to stay in well-lit areas if I have to go out at night. And if I have my gun, I have my gun. I have my flashlight. I have a fixed blade, things like that. And then try to plan my routes ahead of time.
Yeah, I got a funny story about blending in, right? So I went to Juarez, Mexico last summer to go get some delicious tacos, right? Because that's what you do. You go across the border, you find good tacos anytime you're around Mexico. And so, Juarez being a little bit less touristy, than somewhere like Tijuana or something, right? And so I decided I needed to try to blend in as much as possible. And I did my best. I had a hat specific to the trip. I chose the clothes specific to the trip. And then, I did my best to blend in. And as soon as I got south of the border, it was all, "Hey, Gringo, come here." I stuck out like a sore thumb, even though, I tried my best to blend in. I couldn't make it. I tried, but I got my tacos. So there was a win there.
So part of your layer of defense for your taco trips is you need to learn Spanish.
Absolutely.
So talk to Edgar.
Yep.
Yeah,
absolutely.
One of the things, Barrett, it's funny you say that because, I didn't spend any time during my career working undercover, but, maybe one thing here or there, but that wasn't nearly the primary focus of anything I did. But I did spend a lot of time in plain clothes and doing surveillance and doing interviews and watching people and human behavior. And it's one of those things that, even when I thought I was blending into the environment and had the training, the experience, local folks, whether it be a city in the U.S. or Juarez, Mexico, or anywhere else, you're not fooling anyone.
Right.
And so we have to make sure, again, we take that layered approach and do everything. Like Deryck said, we try to do all the things that we can do, but we also have to understand that, we're just trying to get ourselves deselected by making those decisions. That we're still not going to fit in like we think we are.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Onion? When you head to a different destination?
Well,
like when you come to Florida.
Yeah, I actually wear shorts. You can tell by how white my legs are. But Deryck hit a lot of the stuff, but not having other people book your hotel rooms, it is a good start. And again, it goes back to the microwave or washing machine research I talk about all the time in my classes. Is we'll spend an infinite amount of time to save $5 and listen to other people's reviews, not knowing what their context of use is. But we worry about spending the extra 20 or $30 for a decent hotel in a decent area, checking out the crime stats of the area you're in. I know from my experience that crime, regardless of what the statistics say, violent crime is on an uptick, right? So we want to try to make those selections on where we're staying. When we talk about resources, I understand everyone has a budget, but you get yourself in that position where you pay now or possibly pay later with things that are much, much more expensive than your money. So, finding those good quality places to stay in good areas that have all those things, because we're not familiar when we travel for the most part. It has all the things that you need around you. Whether you're staying in an Airbnb, you research the area, crime stats, and things like that are very, very easily available now on the internet. If you're going to be cooking and planning your dinners, make sure those places are within a reasonable amount of time and also in a reasonable area. Just all the things that Deryck kind of mentioned, and also have those layered plans. And, depending on the laws, you might not always be able to carry a firearm when you're on vacation or traveling. And so you have to plan that into those layers of security. You don't want to paint yourself into a corner where, just because the only thing you have is that hammer, everything starts to look like the nail. So with those layers, it makes you much more competent and confident in those situations where you don't have a piece of that layer. You can fill in the gaps. So it just goes back to what we're talking about today is the more you understand the process, the more confident you can be, and the less you're going to end up likely needing any of those layers.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, researching crime is definitely one of my big ones, that I'll use in different cities to, whether I'm choosing the place to stay or I'm already there and I'm going out, to go walk 1.5 miles to go eat dinner or something like that. I'll definitely pay attention to that. Like a lot of what y'all talked about, is also, I'd be repeating as well if I jumped into it. I have a tendency, if there's a crowd, I will blend in. If I'm solo, walking down city streets, I have a tendency to walk really fast. Like I'm a fast walker anyway, but if someone is in any way trying to, walk behind me, I mean, you would have to be pretty deliberate almost to run, because if I'm solo, I'm a pretty quick walker. Have a tendency to not pay attention to the crosswalk signs and that kind of stuff. So again, it's, if someone is targeting me in any way, have a tendency more, to stick out in those types of situations. But yeah, I mean, I think that, if, a lot of this kind of goes back to, when you, and I think, I can't remember who that I first heard it talk about, but talking about looking at personal defense, as layers of an onion, or, layers of something like a pineapple or something like that, right? At the, the core of what we're talking about, whether the core that your core weapons or is your core protective zone that you're talking about, we put all kind of additional layers in place to help prevent ourselves from ending up in those types of situations where you are, forced to protect yourself with a gun. And, like Deryck talked about, some of it is simply just, the way that you carry yourself walking down the street, that, that you look like somebody that, may put up more of a fight than someone else, right? You're not looking like a path of least resistance or an easy target, but you're the one that's carrying yourself differently. That you may be, be the one that is, paying more attention to what's happening surrounding. Awareness is one of those things that can allow us to be deselected, many of the times, right? Is that you don't even know you were a potential target because you were someone that was carrying yourself a little bit differently from day to day. And, somebody that is targeting someone looking to steal a wallet, steal a car, whatever that insert in there, then generally speaking, they are looking for that path of least resistance. So when we look like we're not the path of least resistance, we end up being deselected, right? Or avoiding different situations. And I think that, that's a big one. And I use New Orleans just because I'm local to New Orleans, right? But, in New Orleans, violent crime has been up over the past couple of years. And if you look at it, what you'll find is that the crime generally is happening in certain areas at certain times of the night, or certain to different times of the day, whatever you want to talk about there. And a lot of times is when people are, solo, and in some way inebriated. Right. So if you can avoid being in these areas by yourself, drunk after hours, then you probably have avoided, 80 something percent of the violent crime that you could find yourself in. Right. And so that's part of that layered approach is trying to prevent those situations that could alleviate the, the likelihood that you end up in a violent encounter.
Yeah. 100, or go ahead, Deryck. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Jamie. I was just going to say something flip.
Yeah.
Barret was talking about walking fast, and I was like, well, so you're saying footwear is important. And like the three of us get that inside joke.
Yeah.
Footwear then becomes very important.
I mean,
you might as well tell the world, man. I hate shoes.
Barret loves flip-flops.
Yeah.
Barret in the Marine Corps, we called them shower shoes for a reason. And he was talking about walking fast, and I was just, that's why people might have saw me start smirking.
I have gone into a burning building without proper footwear on. I have run several miles in flip-flops. So I've earned it. If I want to wear flip-flops, I can wear my flip-flops.
Right. But for the rest of you, don't wear flip-flops unless you've been through the amount of training that Barret has in the swamps of the Cajun side of Louisiana.
That's right. I've hunted in flip-flops too. Summertime and wintertime.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, I can't remember and maybe one of you guys will remember who came up with the little saying, don't go to stupid places, do stupid things and whatever. But those days are kind of over, right? I live in I wouldn't call it a posh suburb, but a decent area. We don't have a lot of crime, but we're not immune to the carjackings and the thefts and things like that are happening now. There was a video, and I don't know if any of the viewers caught it, of a Detroit officer over the last few days in full uniform in a convenience store trying to cash out, and he was ambushed from behind by two people that tried to take his gun from him. So, we're seeing certain types of crimes that we haven't seen on a regular basis. And And so it goes back to, we can remove a lot of those elements that you're talking about, Barret, but sometimes we have to realize that even if we take all those precautions, even if we use that awareness, even if we do things to de-escalate the environment we're in, we may still find ourselves in a situation where we need those skills. So I think these skills that we talk about are important for the average person, whether they choose to carry that firearm on a regular basis or not. I put them in that same category as, the fire extinguisher, right? Or the seatbelt. They're things you hope you never need, but you need to know how to use properly. And when you need them, you need them. And these are the kind of basic skills that we're talking about here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, like I said, thankfully, I live in a pretty safe environment, but it doesn't matter where you look, happy place USA, you're going to find violent crime, right? It wasn't a mile from my house, just earlier this year, late last year, where, you had a violent home invasion and a Catholic priest and another lady that were, violently killed and their bodies burned right there in downtown, where I live, right? And so, that kind of stuff happens, right? Just in the neighborhood, in my neighborhood, we've had just recently people trying to break into homes with others' home, right? Where somebody was just recently held at gunpoint, or not held at gunpoint, but had a gun pointed at them until they finally, ended up running away, right? And so it doesn't matter where you go, you're going to find violent crime. I remember over there by Deryck's way just a couple of years ago, you had some high school kids just kind of hanging out around a pond or something that, was in one of those rural towns where not much ever happens. And yet, 3 people were violently murdered that day. And so, yeah, I mean, it's, and obviously there is an uptick in violent crime, throughout the U.S. I think, more so than we've seen in the past, where for years I was able to say that violent crime was on a downward trend, regardless of what people's perception was. It was actually trending down for years. Well, now I think that we are seeing the opposite. And that's why we, do things like have the insurance policy of the gun to be able to protect yourself if you're forced to do so.
So Jamie got me on a Google. Like I jumped over and Googled.
Me too.
The whole the stupid people, stupid thing, blah blah. I'm pretty sure the first time I heard it, it was either from Masada U or John Farnham, but I don't.
Yeah, I think it was Farnham.
Yeah, I think John Farnham is. Yep.
But
yeah, I've heard it for many years. But yeah, I think it was John Farnham that was the one who coined that.
But he might have gotten it from the 5 Universal Laws of Human Stupidity, which came out in 1976 by a professor of economic history at UCal Berkeley, Carlos N. Cipolla. Because I read the 5 laws real quick, and like you could deduce the don't go to stupid places at stupid time with stupid people based off of the laws of stupidity that were published by that guy.
It's one of those things that, it's all about the paradigm shift and getting the information out to educate people. I mean, we can do a lot of things wrong to get ourselves victimized, which doesn't mean it's always the victim's fault. It just means we can do a lot of things to set that victimization into motion, like Barret said, being intoxicated by ourselves and, with your Rolex on and all those kind of things, should you be able to do that in our free country? Of course you should. But it doesn't always work out in your favor. But we also can do everything right and still end up in those situations. And that's where I think we need a little bit of the general paradigm shift of, well, if I don't do this and I don't do that, then I don't have to worry about whatever that may be. And the truth of the matter is, and we all have to worry about it at any given time. So, having that baseline of education doesn't mean you have to spend every weekend that your kids are playing baseball at some kind of, doomsday training seminar or something like that. I think it's our responsibility as our own first responders to have that baseline understanding and knowledge on what to do if we encounter one of those situations.
I mean, like you said at the beginning of the show, like the gun, you really do need to get out on the range with a competent instructor and learn how that firearm works, how to operate that firearm, and how to be safe with that firearm. Because the minute you walk out of the house with a loaded gun on your body, anything you get into is really an armed conflict, even if the gun doesn't come out.
Sure.
You know, but then after that, the soft skills, like you were just saying, like you don't have to spend every weekend out. There's soft skills that you can sit there and read an article about, and sit there and write notes and think about it, and that is adequate training for something. You know, like we've seen people talk about de-escalation, right? You don't have to go to a de-escalation class to know how to de-escalate. It's something that just requires a little bit deeper thinking.
And I don't know if you're with me or not, but Barrett's laughing because he knows I hate that word.
I know.
I was trying to hold it in. I was.
But
the only reason I said it is like I'm sort of there with you, Jamie, with the de-escalation thing. But it's like it's a phrase that's used a lot in our industry, in the self-defense industry, along with I'm always in condition, whatever. Fuchsia is used a lot. I'm always in, and then what's the other one? Muscle memory, right? They all mean something and have some value to them if you put the intellectual context behind it while you use the word, as opposed to it's a magic word.
Yeah.
And somebody says, well, just de-escalate. Oh, okay, cool. And does that, what Harry Potter spell is that?
Well, and it's one of those things, and Barret and I did a whole segment on this for something. And the interesting part about it is, that word has been thrown around the law enforcement community forever. And it doesn't mean what people think it means. And that's the unfortunate part. And that goes back to vetting the training, right? If you want to get de-escalation training, it goes back to what we all say in our classes: words have meaning. When we talk about most de-escalation trainer, what we see that's out there, it talks about taking control of the situation, slowing things down, getting angry people less angry. Those are all parts of de-escalation, but sometimes de-escalation might be using your firearm to end a confrontation, or might be using your firearm to end an active killer. And we don't talk a lot about that when we use that word. So if we're not going to use the word in the proper context, then I think we're not educating people properly on a concept. And that's kind of why I hate the way that word's been integrated into our community, because we have to talk about it full circle in all aspects of it. So we get the true meaning and context of what de-escalation looks like.
Yeah. Because a lot of people, like you said, when somebody says de-escalation, they think, oh, I just have to eat humble pie when somebody starts yelling at me.
Yeah, and
I'll de-escalate. But it's a whole lot more than that. Like you said, it could be using the gun. It could be like hitting them with pepper spray. It could be taser or some other,
Yeah, it could be everything from that walking away or, no, I'm sorry, man, whatever, to deadly force, right? It really depends on the context of the situation. And we have to do better with that. A lot of the de-escalation stuff is feel good training. It doesn't talk about, and there's some organizations out there that are doing it right, but it's not the norm. It's mostly the toning everything down and kind of not leaving that out for the idea of sometimes escalating the situation might be the right choice to de-escalate. And that's not a popular opinion, but it's fact.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
A quick story. I was on the range teaching a class, and a bay over. I don't know what the class was, but he had the people screaming at the targets before they started shooting, and he told them they need to. One time, everybody on the line at once was saying like 4-letter words, and in my mind, I'm like, okay, that guy's believable, but the other 3 are pretty funny. Like I tell my students, like, if you're not a person that swears, don't all of a sudden think you're going to de-escalate or back someone down because you tell them to back the F off or I'm going to do something.
Hey guys, you better back the F off right now. Or
right. Like don't be you, but be an authoritative. Like you can learn to be authoritative when you talk without cursing or swearing if you don't do that as part of your daily life of communication.
Well,
It's
yeah,
just going to sound like a bigger target.
You gotta talk about layers, right? What if that layer fails? You have to be able to back up that layer of what you have. And that's one of the things that are missing. And that's truly someone who, I don't know who this guy or gal that's teaching, but that's someone who doesn't understand human behavior, right? So you have to understand. We talked about the fact you can try to blend into the area all you want, but someone who really is there to hurt you and has that background and experience is going to see right through your fake, screw you or F off or whatever you're going to say to them as your voice is cracking and things like that. And also on that behavior side is that's someone who doesn't understand that the real criminal who chooses to violently attack another human being doesn't care if you have a gun or yell at them or all of those things in many situations, right? So again, that just goes back to vetting who you're getting your information from. And even if it's your best friend or your uncle or your police officer friend that told you about it, don't take it on its merit, right? Do that research and do that information, or look up that information and make sure it fits your context and your belief system and your skill set.
Yeah. Like you've seen it more than us, right? Like hardened criminals have had guns pointed at them many times. So somebody that they already selected as a potential victim has already been analyzed as a low threat to begin with. So the minute if that person like says they have a gun or starts to pull a gun, it might not faze them at all.
No, it might actually do the opposite, Deryck.
And I've seen that, several times out of New Orleans recently, where you've had victims go to protect themselves with firearms. And, if you went back 15 years ago, I think that the actions of some of the threats would have gone differently. But yeah, it's done the exact opposite. You've ended up in a two-way bullet fight.
Yeah. And I mean, as you said, just like we like to think we're good at what we do and, whatever business people are in, they think they're good at what they do. This is their job, right? God rest his soul, but William April, the training was excellent when he talks about those kind of folks, meaning the criminals, don't think like we do, right? And we try to put our perspectives on them when making a decision, and it doesn't work that way. So, that brandishing, and we talk a lot about, showing the gun, brandishing the gun, and how we don't advocate those kind of things. Well, that's because we understand how human behavior works. And that doesn't scare that small population of criminal that has chosen to take that step to have that violent encounter. In some ways, it actually, if you think about it, the life that a lot of criminals live, the exposure they have, like Deryck said, multiple guns pointed at them over there, that puts them in a higher threat level on their end. And just really infuriates that attack in many situations, as opposed to, the outcome that you believe in your head taking that step is going to have.
Right.
And then when you're overcome by that violence of action, there's no coming back against that's your white belt fighting the black belt at that point. That's their environment.
Yep.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys, we're starting to wrap up the hour. Any last words that y'all have on the subject?
No, but we can't forget show and tell. Jamie brought show and tell
for
everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Well, they're a tour sponsor. So.
Yeah, I got both options here. So I finally have PD10 in hand. Several thousand rounds through it now. But I'm really digging the G Code Phenom. And this is the stealth version. It's cut out here at the bottom. Paired up with, now it comes with your standard clip on it, but paired up with this alias system that I've been kind of playing with from Neomag, which is an Ohio company here. This has become my new favorite setup. Really light, really easy to use, whether I'm wearing, gym shorts on my way to cut the grass because I don't go to the gym.
All right, Jamie, watch last month's training talk.
Huh?
I said watch last month's training talk.
I know. But really solid. And then because of the nature of the other stuff I do, sometimes it calls for outside the waistband. And I've just got this in hand, so I haven't spent a lot of time with it. But the comfort level for an outside the waistband holster, if that's your thing, is super comfortable. And, leave it to G-Code to give us many options, because without the wings on it here, they've set it up so you can put any one of their attachment systems on there and fit whatever platform that you have. Retention on this is really good for a this type of holster. Same on the Stealth. Really, really digging it. And at first I have to say I wasn't sure about the metal wing. It's kind of a game changer.
It's because of the color.
Aluminum, right? So it's super light.
Yeah. Super light.
And let me ask you this: do you know why they chopped on the Stealth? Why they chopped that front edge off? Does it help with concealment? Does it?
I don't know, because it's not on the body side. So what I can think of, and this is my uneducated guess, is especially for let's call it thicker guys like me, the shorter the holster, the harder it is to conceal and keep the butt tucked in, right? So this gives you that opportunity to cover the whole gun on the body side, and also act as that kind of
extra lever,
to keep it where it's at. And it does a phenomenal job. This is the only holster I have that doesn't have the fancy Dr. Scholl's on it like I use, and it stays in place like it does. And with the PD10 in place, it just leaves a little bit. I don't know if you can see that. There you go. A little bit out the bottom. And the way that it sits is phenomenal. And it's cut out. One of the pet peeves I have with a lot of holsters is not being able to get that full grip right out of the holster. And the way they have the clip set up, this was well thought out. The way they have the clip set up and the way it's cut out right around where it goes on the trigger guard still meets our criteria for holsters, but allows you to get that full grip and not get pinched in there.
Nice.
Really happy with that.
Very fancy, very fancy.
Yeah, we're supposed to be getting some here in the next week or so for the Canucks, because Canucks is another one of our sponsors. So we'll be getting some to fit our Canuck compacts.
Yeah, I've got to order one for my PD10 as well. So I don't have quite
I'm going to order one too. I just let Jamie's so quick. I figured he's a lefty, I'm a lefty. I'll let him be my tester before I invest.
Can't go off of a right-hander's opinion. It's got to be a left-hander's.
Yeah. You won't be disappointed. Deryck and I are holster snobs, and you won't be disappointed with that.
No, definitely.
I was just thinking that open end too. You think that also would aid, like you say, when you decided you're going to put a threaded barrel on it for some reason?
It could. I mean,
I just know
now you can do it.
Yeah.
So
it's got just
can't be
enough
wider
room.
than the slide.
It's got just enough room at the bottom to protect your threaded barrel if you so choose on the PD10. But yeah.
I know they make a threaded barrel, Barret. I own zero suppressors in my life.
They do make a threaded barrel. I say that. Rob has a threaded barrel.
No, it's on the website.
It's on the website.
Yeah.
I haven't put a suppressor on one of my handguns at this point. I can't even remember the last time. Let's call it 7-8 years ago, for that matter. I'll shoot them on the rifles, but it's just, I guess it's just outside of the norm to be like, when I'm at the range to put it on.
I'm going to fold with dead air. I'm going to get one for my rifle.
No, absolutely. That's my next one. Is definitely going to be dead air.
But I'm telling you, I keep saying, okay, the powers that be are going to get it together and realize the suppressor does not make it extra killy and doesn't turn every gun into an assassination machine.
Well,
keep holding your breath.
Keep holding your breath.
But
I tell my students, hope isn't a method, but here I do, sitting here hoping.
I think it's almost a necessity for a defensive rifle, and it helps with the hunting rifles too. Pistols, again, I use it a lot on my 22 pistols just for the giggle factor.
Well, and that's, I've got kids, right? And at 9 and 11, I can't, really highlight enough the importance of having the suppressor is on the hunting rifles, is that, we don't have to sit there and worry about damaging their ears or having hearing protection on the entire time sitting in a stand, because I've got the rifle set up to where I don't have to worry about that with them. And, my dad had me shooting by like age 4. And I mean, I grew up with guns in the hands and constantly shooting and hunting and other stuff. But it's funny, I always kind of joke around. He taught me how to be super cautious and safe around guns and respect the dangers with them and how to handle them safely. But yet, I don't think I ever wore hearing protection until I was probably, 20 years old or something like that. And it was not because of his influence. It was just like, wait, maybe I should protect my ears, just somewhere along the way. And so, I mean, we've got pictures of, me shooting like an Uzi in backwoods Tennessee, back when I was a kid, AKs and everything else. It's like, no hearing protection. We don't need it.
Well, and that's one of the things too that you don't think about, because it's a lot of resources to put out for a suppressor right now, right? The tax stamp, the waiting time, all those things. But if that's part of your layered system to have that rifle for home defense or you know vehicle defense or whatever context you decide you need that rifle, if you haven't fired a rifle without a suppressor inside a car or a house, you will value that suppressor pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And so, we're used to using those items outside or even in an indoor range where there's baffles and, things like that, with hearing protection on. But it's not going to take it all away, but boy, does it help.
No, it definitely does.
Well, I can tell you, inside of a building without hearing protection, like I didn't put on hearing protection until I joined the Marine Corps. So I was 22 before I ever put on hearing protection. And I can tell you, mount training, like inside urban training, inside of a building, and with blanks, and my one plug came out because I moved my cover. Wow.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, just think about the context of being on as an instructor on an outdoor range during rifle training and forgetting to stick that earplug back in when the line starts firing. You only do that once.
yeah, done that a few times. Started it out with the up and finished it with one finger stuffed in my ear
Yeah.
because I forgot to put one side in.
Wonder what the
Yep.
noise reduction rating is for the finger.
About as much as a shell casing.
No, I actually
But
think
it's
it's much
better than-
better than that. I'm willing to bet it's better than hearing protection.
Well,
And you get a
it's
proper
better
plug.
than a Marlboro Light filter because that was the old standby when I was in the Marine Corps. Find a filter of a Marlboro Light sitting around.
Couldn't have
somewhere,
been a
stick it-
Camel or a Marlboro Red, right? It had to be a Marlboro Light.
Well, the guys that smoked, it seemed like they all smoked Marlboro Lights.
It's kind of like Marines in Copenhagen, right? No one dips anything else.
Yeah.
You're not going to find anything else but Copenhagen.
Yep, exactly right. Hey, to all the if anybody that's watching is a WM, a woman Marine, my heart goes out to you today. They deactivated 4th Training Battalion down in Paris Island. That was the female Marine, woman Marine training battalion for the longest time. They deactivated it today, thanks to the powers that be and integration of training at boot camp level. So a lot of great female Marines that I know went through 4th Battalion, and it is no longer a thing.
Well, I think we've reached the end of the show for this evening. Thanks again to the sponsor of tonight's show, Primary Arms Online. If you haven't been to their website, it is definitely one of the best for firearms and accessories and that kind of stuff. So definitely check that out. You can check out Deryck's trusty dusty Primary Arms hat that he has over there as well. And if you haven't looked at the tour calendar for events taking place near you, then check it out as well, which is PDN Training Tour.com. We've got lots of awesome instructors on the tour this year. Y'all just heard about G-Code with the holsters, Freedom Munitions on the ammunition side, Canic on the handgun sides. They've got some fantastic guns. Voltec, as Deryck's holding up the Voltec safe. Maybe y'all saw my video I put out the other day that my favorite home defense safe is the big brother to that model that he just held up. Has nothing to do with sponsorship at all. I'm telling you, I've tested so many different models and so many different companies over the past over a decade at this point, and my favorite one to date is that Vaultec VS20i. Like I said, he was just holding up the VS10i, but it's biometric. It connects to the phone, but it's just a super reliable safe. But yeah, Freedom Munitions on the ammunition. You've got Walk the Talk America as a tour sponsor. Nemo Arms on the rifle side for the carbines and whatnot. Phenomenal guns. And who else am I missing, Deryck? Going off of just my memory here. USCCA, absolutely. USCCA has been a sponsor for multiple years. If you haven't checked out their offerings, be sure to do so. They have obviously self-defense insurance that a lot of people sign up for, but they do a tremendous amount of online education as well and in-person education. So be sure to check out what they are offering.
Did you get Vertex?
Yeah, Vertex clothing. Vertex clothing.
I got Vertex bags on the wall that are blurry.
Yep,
but
I got one sitting like, I don't know, 14 and a half inches, next to me as well. So yeah, any of the sponsors that have ever been brought on the tour have quality stuff. So it's, vetted material stuff first and then sponsors second. But if you haven't checked out the tour sponsors, be sure to do so, because they definitely do provide a lot of awesome stuff. And CERT, the NLT CERT laser pistols that many of us use for training, for practice. I use them a lot, for teaching. And of course, Rapid Fire Radio out of Massachusetts. But Rapid Fire Radio is syndicated all across in different places. So be sure to check them out as well. But thanks for everybody tuning in tonight. When Deryck and I come back from a training event in July, so we'll hold off on the first week of July. And Deryck and I, for 4th of July, will hold off for the training show. But then the second week of July, Deryck and I and several others are taking part in a training event somewhere in the middle of nowhere. I don't quite know where it is yet, but we should have a pretty good time putting some of the stuff to use, such as that Primary Arms SLX6 that I talked about earlier. And so when we come back for the third week of July, we will talk about some of our experience using different pieces of gear in the training class that we're part of and whatnot. But hope to see y'all back next month. If you want to hear about something, you want to show about it, then be sure to drop those remarks in the comments. We'll pay attention to that as well. Other than that, thanks for tuning in. Jamie, if they want to get in touch with you, they can find you at Jamie. Yes. You got to look for Jamie. I had a feeling that's what it's going to be. Deryck, of course, you can find on the social medias under Echo 5 Training. E5 Training or Echo 5 Training? Echo 5 Training. And of course, Deryck Poole. You can find me, as well. Bearco Training on a couple of the platforms with, or Barret Kendrick on a couple of others. I actually just joined TikTok, guys. What do you think about that?
I saw that.
Yeah. So here's the best part, right? So I'm on TikTok. If y'all are watching tonight, follow me on TikTok at Barret Kendrick. I've only posted like 4 videos so far, 5 videos, and 2 of them have already been removed for violating the terms and conditions set out by TikTok. I'm like, wait, I'm not doing very good at this, but I promise.
China doesn't like guns.
I'm going to try to put out some quality stuff.
Flip-flop dances.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in.